Welcome back to Marvelous Videos. I'm Rylan, and today we will be taking a look at the best episodes of Masters of Horror. As much as it is loved by horror fans, a genuinely captivating horror anthology is few and far between. The art of perfecting a compilation of horror shorts is a rarity, mainly because of the maker's struggle to maintain continuity. Often, you'll come across a horror anthology that delivers one fascinating story along with some mediocre ones. On other occasions, the direction is found to be lacking in most stories, while one of them in particular is directed by a veteran director. In this world of inconsistencies, Masters of Horror came like a breath of fresh air. This TV series, created by Mick Garris, brought together some of the finest horror filmmakers and produced something unique. He invited the likes of John Carpenter, Tobe Hooper, Stuart Gordon, Guillermo del Toro, and many others to an informal dinner, and their mutual admiration brought them together for this project.
Get the hell out of here now!
You can imagine that with such a quality of directors on board, the stories were promising. And over the space of 2 seasons, this horror anthology delivered some unforgettable episodes, time and time again. The stories explored everything from unexplained monstrosities to supernatural events, to Lovecraftian horror. And so, in this video, we'll bring you some of the finest episodes from this timeless classic. If you're any sort of horror fan, it is time to dim the lights and check out this underrated gem. Before we get into today's explanation, however, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is just a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thanks. Now then, let's begin. H.P. Lovecraft's Dream in the Witch House, directed by Stuart Gordon. Season 1, Episode 2. Those of you who are well versed with the works of H.P. Lovecraft know about Dreams in the Witch House, which is regarded as one of his creepiest stories. The narrator picks up with a student named Walter Gilman, who moves to a new attic room in the witch house. It is thought to be a cursed building, and even the dimensions of his room are rather peculiar. After moving into his new apartment, Walter has strange dreams. In these dreams, he experiences an otherworldly space of horrors and geometry. One day, he hears his neighbor Frances screaming and rushes to help her. She claims that she was chased by a large rat, and the manager refuses to help Walter. One of the other tenants in the building, Measurewitz, asks if the rat had a human face, as if it was something he expected. Walter grows closer to Francis, and through his future interactions with Measurewitz, he learns that the old man believes in a giant rodent with a human's face living in the building. He also believes that a witch would be after him and warns Walter about the evil nature of the house. However, Walter doesn't buy such stories, and he even refuses a crucifix offered by Measurewitz.
Take this. Come on, man. Look, no thanks. It was just...
Frances is a single mother, and when she goes for a job interview, she asks Walter to watch over her son Danny. During his stay, a cloaked witch appears as Frances and seduces Walter to sleep with her. Midway into the act, she claws the skin off his back and transforms into an old witch. He suddenly wakes up as if from a bad dream, but it turns out that the witch has already carved a pentagram onto his back. Later, he is grabbed by the man-faced rodent, and it cuts his wrist, causing him to bleed. He finds himself in the restricted access room of his university library, and he watches the Book of Necronomicon and signs of some terrible rituals. Suddenly, he is confronted by the angry warden, and he has no explanation of his presence out of nowhere. Walter barely manages to escape and returns back to his apartment, where he is dubbed as crazy by Francis. He stumbles upon the skeletons of some past sacrifices in the apartment, and when he realizes that the witch had planned to sacrifice Danny, he strangles her with a crucifix. However, the rodent with the man's face sucks the life out of Danny, and Walter is blamed for the murder. He is deemed to be mentally unstable and sent to the psychiatric ward. He is attacked by the vicious rodent once again, and he bleeds to death, while Measurewitz hangs himself in his room. The curse of the house takes a heavy toll on their lives, and the episode ends with the room for rent sign put up once again. The most shocking part of the episode was its unpredictable nature. The interaction with the dark world of witches and monsters was so bizarre that it was not easy to comprehend if Walter was just losing his mind or not. This is Lovecraftian horror at its finest, and it's a must-watch for any of his fans. Dance of the Dead, directed by Tobe Hooper. Season 1, Episode 3. The story is premised in a dark and bleak future, and you know you can trust Tobe Hooper to come up with the perfect ambiance for such a setting. In this futuristic world, terrorists have devised a strange biological weapon called blizz, which can be dropped from the skies and cause people to burn instantly. Peggy, a young girl, watched many of her friends killed by this blizz, and she took shelter inside her house with her mother and sister. 10 years following this event, the US has been destroyed by the impact of World War III. The body counts keep rising, and Peggy has now grown into a young woman. Her sister is now dead, and she runs a business with her mother, Kate. Even though business is down, their father has left some money for them, and they manage to get along just fine. Peggy meets a biker and druggie named Jack and 2 of his friends, and she takes interest in some shady dealings at a nightclub called the Doom Room. Despite her mother's warnings, she sneaks out with them and heads out to the Doom Room. This heavy metal bar is home to the scum of society, and Peggy watches a performance in the club while her new friends strike a deal backstage. They smuggle packets of blood, and Peggy finds out that the owner of the Doom Room, MC, collects bodies of drug overdosed teens and injects them with some drug to keep their hearts beating. They are pumped with blood and forces them to dance in the club, but Peggy is shocked to find that her dead sister is also one of the undead teens. She tries to whisk her sister away, but she has a nasty surprise waiting for her when she learns that her own mother sold her sister to MC after she overdosed. Apparently, Peggy's father never left them any money, and Kate admitted that her financial condition forced her to go ahead with this unthinkable act. Peggy is furious and trades Kate for her sister, whom she buries respectfully and considers the last living member of her family. The episode ends on quite an ominous note, as we see Peggy and one of the teenagers frequenting the dorm room as she watches Kate's corpse being forced to dance. This episode was Tobe Hooper at his finest, with a gratuitous, nihilist tale of a post-apocalyptic world. His expressions were vivid, and there was nothing to hold him back, which allowed him to create this masterpiece. Dear Woman, directed by John Landis. Season 1, Episode 7. The episode opens at a lodge, where several drunk truckers are having quite a party. One of the truckers leaves the room and hears a fellow trucker screaming inside a truck. Just as he is about to go and investigate, things all of a sudden go quiet, and he leaves. Detective Dwight and his partner Officer Jacob Reed are called in to some reports of a possible animal attack. We see the truck from the opening sequence, and upon investigation, they realize that the door of the truck was kicked out by something extremely powerful. When Dwight questions the locals about the whereabouts of the victim inside the truck, he finds out that the man was last seen with a Native American woman. He seems to have died in a state of arousal, and nothing about his death could be passed off as natural. Meanwhile, another businessman is seen with a beautiful Native American woman who guides him to a hotel. He soon becomes the next victim, and the woman proceeds to seduce another man. When the detective inspects the dead body of the businessman, he realizes that the body has marks just like the previous victim in the truck. Something similar seems to have killed both of them, and their initial suspicion attributes the attacker to be a deer. They also got some information about the second victim being seen with a Native American woman. A local Native American bartender tells them about the legend of the Deer Woman. This malevolent spirit of the forest takes the form of a beautiful girl and seduces its victims. She has the body of a woman, but the legs of a deer, and the deer woman kills for the sheer thrill of it. The detective actually believes the story, but Officer Reed doesn't buy such an outrageous tale and wanders off. He soon runs into the deer woman himself and takes her home. The detective unearths some past news of loggers being trampled to death in the woods under mysterious circumstances. The pattern seems all too familiar, but by the time that he calls his assistant, it's a bit too late. Officer Reed tells him about the woman, but he soon realizes that he is faced with the monster. Before the detective can arrive to help, Officer Reed is killed. Dwight desperately gives chase and attacks the deer woman, but she simply disappears. The episode ends with the detective informing other policemen about the animal attack, probably because he realizes that no one would believe his story. This episode will definitely be remembered for the creepy mythical legend of the Deer Woman, and everything about this short story was eerily presented for the viewer. The open-ended climax further added to the charm of the narrative, and the director, John Landis, did a great job with the concept. Fair-Haired Child, directed by William Malone. Season 1, Episode 9. Tara is a young teenager, but she is somewhat of a loner. Despite her talents, she is not really liked in school, and she doesn't have very many friends. Her life gets worse when she is kidnapped one day and taken to a strange mansion far away. Her mother seems bothered by her situation, and her kidnapper is a woman dressed in a nurse's outfit who asks her some weird questions about her life so far. She is asked about her physical relationships and whether or not she is baptized. Following the interrogation, she is locked up in the basement, and her attempt to run away fails. Tara's kidnapper also has a male accomplice, and something about them is very unnerving. In the basement, Tara finds a young boy named Johnny hanging from a noose, and she saves him from certain death. They develop a bond, but the boy cannot speak and only communicates by writing in the dust. Tara tries to make sense of his cryptic message to beware of the fair-haired child. The duo also finds a room with several backpacks and a bloody bathtub, which suggests that they are not the first ones to be trapped here. The ones before them clearly did not meet with a pleasant fate, and they must quickly find a way to escape. There's a shocking twist in the tale when Tara discovers that the fair-haired child is none other than Johnny himself. He transforms into a disgusting demonic creature, and Tara somehow manages to hide from the creature until it transforms back into Johnny. She learns that Johnny had died 12 years ago on his 15th birthday, and unable to deal with the tragedy, his parents had struck a deal with the demon. They performed a ritual regularly, where they would sacrifice a teenager every year. After 12 such offerings, Tara being the last one, Johnny would become human again. However, Johnny is overcome with guilt, and he also started to care for Tara. She reciprocated his feelings for her, and this time, when he transforms into a monster, she doesn't simply run away, but allows herself to be killed. Johnny is now back to his human self, because the ritual is complete, but he has something else in mind. When his parents arrive, he reveals that he has struck a deal with the demon for 2 more victims. Tara now appears herself as the fair-haired child, and the parents are soon killed. In return, she gets her life back, and Johnny tells her that she will have no memory of this terrible past temporarily. This episode was impressive, mainly because of the unexpected twist. The monster design was also quite impressive, and it was a story that kept people guessing until the very end. The Damned Thing, directed by Tobe Hooper, Season 2, Episode 1. This is Tobe Hooper's second contribution to the Masters of Horror series, and this episode is based on a short story by Ambrose Bierce. However, the director made quite a few changes and only retained the concept of an invisible force trying to destroy the residents of a small Texas town. This apocalyptic tale traces a mysterious monstrous force that devastates the family of local sheriff Kevin Reddle. His father killed his mother many years ago, and he believes that there is a connection between the invisible force and the murder. He sets off to investigate further, and he wants to put an end to this damned thing before it can affect the entire town by turning the residents into murderous psychopaths. However, he is up against an unexplained force, and this is not going to be a cakewalk.
Get the hell out of here now!
Tobe Hooper is not one to shy away from explicit violence in his movies, and this one is no exception. Be prepared for some gruesome moments with blood and guts and disembowelments. The execution was a subtle Lovecraftian touch that makes things all the more mystifying. We also loved the touch of dark humor in the script, and is certainly going to be a memorable episode from this addictive series. Pro-Life, directed by John Carpenter, Season 2, Episode 5. John Carpenter is always an exciting name for horror fans, and his presence in the Masters of Horror project presented us with another of his classics. Pro-Life begins with a haunting sequence in an abortion clinic. Angelique has been taken there after someone forced himself on her, and the enforcer was apparently a demonic creature. Now let us ask this, does the name Angelique ring a bell to you? Well, she is one of the most notorious demons of hell, and John Carpenter wasn't just playing around with names here, and the story proves that he was being quite ironical. Even though she's at an abortion clinic, her father is against the procedure, because he is pro-life. He accompanies her 3 brothers, and they are determined to save the unborn child. Her father apparently received a message from God, ordering her to save the baby, but he makes sure that the orders are carried out. Finally, Angelique gives birth, but there is another shocking twist in this tale. She gives birth to a demonic baby, and its demonic father rises from the ground. Angelique's father realizes that it wasn't God, but the demon who ordered him to save the baby, and now it's too late. The demon father of the baby attacks some of the staff present there, and even kills Angelique's father. However, Angelique doesn't lose her composure and shoots the monstrous baby dead. The demon father grieves over the corpse and falls back into hell, and Angelique ends the episode by saying that the will of God is finally done.
God's will is done.
This episode has John Carpenter written all over it. Everything from the disturbing premise to the shocking scenes will let you know that the horror maestro is definitely at work. You might find some of the sequences to be a bit too graphic, but the narrative always keeps you on the edge of your seat, and the demons look terrifying. Overall, this is definitely an episode to remember. The SCREWFLY Solution by Joe Dante, Season 2, Episode 7. A mysterious virus infects the majority of the male population of the world and turns them into murderous psychopaths. The episode begins on this apocalyptic note as a mother and daughter try to escape from the carnage. Their journey across the country would be riddled with dangers, and one wrong move could end their lives. There are increased cases of killings, and meanwhile, Anne's husband Alan notices these incidences while working to solve an insect problem. One of their friends interrogates one of the infected men, and it turns out that they're in a state of arousal, and justify the murders with some religious rhetoric. The world is plagued by tens and thousands of such murderers, and slowly everyone is aware of this strange epidemic. The only feasible method of preventing the infection seems to be chemical castration, or even actual castration. Some are opposed to such a drastic solution, and even the US Army General is against the move. In the course of time, even Alan gets infected, and later, he attacks his own daughter. In some regions, the situation is so grim that the entire female population has been wiped out. In a surprising revelation, we learn that the entire infection was a ploy by an alien race, who viewed it as a slow and effective solution to make the human race go extinct. Even with the desperate struggle for survival, it eventually comes to the point where the female population is totally exterminated. Only the infected men remain, who are going to die off slowly, pointing to an obvious end of human life on Earth.
Australian man!
We have seen several takes on alien invasion stories, but few ideas have been as innovative as this one. The aliens do not engage in any form of conventional combat, and simply take down the entire population using the most effective method. The story might be pessimistic, but the thrilling journey and the struggle for survival make it a very interesting watch. Joe Dante did not hold back with the violence, or his brand of dark humor for that matter, and this effective horror story is sure to leave a lasting impact.
You shouldn't have grounded me.
We All Scream for Ice Cream, directed by Tom Holland, Season 2, Episode 10. Remember the horror of the Candy Man? Well, this story brings you a story of an ice cream man with a twist. The episode begins with a bizarre sequence where a man melts away as his son bites into a cone of ice cream. After his death, one of his friends, named Lane, arrives to attend his funeral, and he realizes that there is something quite mysterious about this death. He also observes children eerily chanting, "We all want for ice cream," as if in a trance. We get to know the terrible past of the town, where an ice cream man named Buster dressed up in a clown suit and sold ice cream in a cart. He was a decent fellow, but some of the notorious kids decided to prank him. One day, one of them pulled off his clown nose, only to reveal that he had a deformed nose, and to make matters worse, they released the brake on his ice cream truck and got Buster run over. Lane was the man who was made to release the brake back in the day, and he realizes that the ice cream man is back for his revenge. He watches helplessly as one of his friends melts away when a girl bites into an ice cream cone, and he devises a plan to put an end to the evil of the ice cream man. He tricks one of the kids to eat an ice cream cone shaped like Buster, and the clown soon fades away himself. However, the episode ends on a cliffhanger because it's revealed that the ghostly figure is still present, and Lane may not be safe after all. This episode did have a few goofy moments, and the heart of the concept was still somewhat laughable. However, credit is due for Tom Holland, who pulled off this entertaining story in such style. The look of the ice cream man was quite creepy, and the story did remind many of the viewers about the legend of the Candy Man. The idea of bringing together some of the finest horror movie directors to create various episodes of a horror anthologies was a masterstroke. Such shows are hardly made these days, in the times of big bucks and large-scale releases. Masters of Horror might be a fun throwback to enjoy, and some of the creepy episodes are sure to provide a few sleepless nights for any viewer. What did you think about this series? What were your favorite episodes? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to send a like and subscribe to our channel, if you haven't already, that is. For Marvelous Videos, I'm Rylan. Have a good one, be safe, and thanks for watching.